The day my own kids threw me out. I realized a mother can give her whole world and still be left with nothing. But what they didn't know was the secret I carried, a secret powerful enough to turn their entire lives upside down. Welcome to Emotional Tales Hub, where real stories cut deep, and every scar has something to say. Today I'm telling you a story that still shakes my voice when I remember it. A story of sacrifice, heartbreak, and the kind of truth a mother never wanted to speak. My name is Marilyn. I'm 72 now, and after a lifetime of giving, I suddenly had nowhere to call home. For years I held my family together, without ever asking for anything in return. Sickness, bills, emergencies, drama. I handled all of it, because that's what mothers do. We keep going, even when we're breaking inside. My oldest son, Aaron, once called me his super mom. Now he looks at me like I'm a burden he never wanted. My younger son, Ethan, who used to grip my hand during storms, now gets annoyed if I even ask. Simple question. And my daughter, Claire, she only remembers me when she needs someone to fix whatever mess she's made this time. That morning, I was just making tea, like I had for decades. Same stove, same kettle, same routine. Except the feeling in the air was different. Heavy, cold. Aaron walked into the kitchen with a stiff look on his face. Not angry, just final. And he said, "Mom, you can't stay here anymore. We don't have space. Things are tough. You'll have to figure something else out." My heart didn't just sink, crack. Figure something else out. From the boy I raised with my own hands. I didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't ask where I should go, because their eyes already said it. Anywhere, just not here. People say, you shouldn't measure your worth through someone else's eyes. But when those eyes belong to your own kids, there's no way it doesn't break you. But here's what they didn't know. The mother they pushed out, the one they thought had nothing left. I was carrying a secret, big one powerful enough to change every single life connected to mine. And trust me, this story is just getting started. After Aaron told me to leave, I didn't say a word. Silence. That was all I had left in that moment. I went back to the tiny guest room they let me use. The same room where they stored old boxes, broken lamps, and things they didn't care about anymore. Funny, right? I had turned that whole house into a home. And in the end, the only place they offered me was the one space they didn't value. I sat on the edge of the bed, hands shaking, heart pounding like something inside me was falling apart piece by piece. Ethan walked by the door, and for a second, I thought maybe he'd stop, maybe he'd say something, ask if I was okay, check on me, anything. But he didn't. He just glanced inside, saw me sitting there, and kept walking like I was invisible. That's the part that stung the most. Not the words, but the way they acted like I didn't exist. A mother spends her whole life teaching her kids how to walk, how to speak, how to live, but nobody prepares you for the day your children walk away from you, like you were never there. I took a slow breath, wiped my face, even though no tears had fallen yet, and started packing. Not clothes, not luggage, just a few things I couldn't leave behind. My wedding ring, the small photo of my children when they were little, when their smiles still felt pure, and the notebook that held the secret I'd been carrying for years. Yeah, the secret, the one I never wanted to use, the one I prayed I'd never need, the one that could turn everything upside down. As I packed, Claire's voice echoed down the hallway. She wasn't talking to me. She never does. She was on the phone gossiping with someone. But I heard her say, "Mom's leaving today. Honestly, it's for the best. She stresses everyone out." Stresses everyone out. Me. The same mother who worked double shifts, skipped meals, and sold her own jewelry, just to make sure they never went to bed hungry. That line hit like a punch to the chest. I wasn't a burden. I was a memory they didn't want around anymore. And maybe that's when something in me snapped. Not in anger, but in clarity. I realized this wasn't my home anymore. So I folded the last photograph, slipped it into my bag, stood up, and whispered to myself, if they want me gone, fine. But they're not ready for what comes next. I walked out of the room, my secret tucked close to my heart, and for the first time in years, I felt the weight shifting. Not disappearing, just shifting, because sometimes, losing everything is the only way to finally see what you were meant to do. And my kids, they had no idea. Their entire world was about to change. Walking out of that house felt unreal, not because I wanted to stay, but because I never imagined my own children would be the ones pushing me toward the door. I held my small bag close, my hands shaking a little. Years of cooking, cleaning, raising, protecting. And now I was leaving with barely anything, except a few memories, and one life-changing secret. When I stepped into the hallway, Aaron was standing there, not to stop me, not to say sorry, not even to pretend he cared. He was just waiting, like he wanted this to be over, so he could get back to his comfortable life. He didn't meet my eyes, didn't offer help, didn't say goodbye. He just cleared his throat and said, Mom, I'll drop you at the bus stop. It's the best I can do. Best he can do. After everything, I didn't say a word. What was there left to say? We walked to the car in silence. The same car I helped him buy. With my savings. My sacrifices. Life is funny like that. Uses your own blessings to break you sometimes. As he drove, I watched the streets pass by, every corner holding a memory of when my kids were small, when they needed me, when they loved me, without conditions. I was just luggage, being dropped off. At a red light, Aaron finally spoke. Mom, don't make this harder, okay? We just need space. Space. From what? From the mother who raised him. I turned my face toward the window, so he wouldn't see the pain in my eyes. But he didn't notice anyway. Kids stop noticing things the moment they stop needing you. When we reached the bus stop, he didn't get out, didn't open the door for me, didn't hug me. He just said, "Take care, Mom. I'll check on you later." Later, a word people use when they don't plan on showing up. I stepped out of the car, my feet shaking for the first time that day. Not because of fear, but because of the realization that I was truly alone. The car drove away before I even shut the door. Not fast, not slow, just gone. I stood there, holding my bag, watching the taillights disappear. And I whispered to myself, if this is what they chose, then so be it. I walked toward the bench and sat down slowly. Around me life moved on. People rushing to work, kids laughing, cars honking. Nobody knew that a mother had just been abandoned by the very children she gave her entire life to. But inside my bag, tucked between old photographs, was the secret they never saw coming, the secret that would decide every one of their futures. And sitting on that cold metal bench, I realized something. Losing them wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a truth they were never prepared to face. The bus stop was cold, colder than I expected. Or maybe it wasn't the weather. Maybe it was just the shock settling in. You don't realize how hard something hits you until you're sitting alone in a place you never imagined yourself being at 72. A woman my age isn't supposed to be waiting at a bus stop with a single bag. She's supposed to be home, surrounded by family, drinking tea, telling stories, hearing laughter. But life doesn't care what's supposed to happen. The bus pulled up with a loud hiss, and the driver, a middle-aged man with kind eyes, looked at me and asked, "Ma'am, you okay?" You look a little shaken. I forced a small smile. Just a long morning, I said. Long morning. What an easy way to cover heartbreak. I stepped onto the bus, found a seat near the window, and placed my bag on my lap. My entire life packed into a small space. As the bus moved, the city blurred around me. Shops, houses, people, all rushing somewhere, while I had no idea where I was supposed to go. And then, my phone buzzed. Not from Aaron. Not from Ethan. Not from Claire. Course not. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Hello. A woman's shaky voice came through. Is this Marilyn Thomas? Yes, I replied slowly. Who's calling? There was a pause. One long enough to make my heart tighten. My name is Linda, she said. I work at the community center. You signed up years ago for our senior support program. Your name came up today. Are you safe? For a second I didn't know what to say. I didn't even remember signing up for anything. But then it hit me. I signed up for that program the year my husband died. I guess part of me knew that one day I might be alone. Yes, I said softly. I'm safe. Just figuring things out. Linda exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. Well, if you need a place to stay, we have a temporary room available. Nothing fancy, but it's warm. It's yours if you want it. For the first time since morning, I felt something warm, not hope exactly, but relief, maybe even gratitude. Thank you, I whispered. Her kindness felt more like home than my children had in years. The bus ride felt less heavy after that. Not because anything was fixed, but because I realized that even when the people you love fail you, the world has a strange way of sending someone who reminds you that you still matter. When the bus stopped near the center, got off slowly, my back aching a little, my heart still bruised, but my steps steadier than before. As I reached the community center doors, I touched the zipper of my bag, the bag that held all the proof, all the papers, all the history, the secret my kids had no idea existed. A secret that wasn't just powerful, it was life-changing, not just for me, but for them. I looked up at the building, took a deep breath, and stepped inside, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't walking away from something, I was walking toward something. And the truth, my kids had no idea what was coming. Linda greeted me at the door with a warm smile. The kind of smile I hadn't seen in a long time. Not the forced, polite smile my children gave me, but a real one. The kind that says, "You matter. You're seen." She placed her hand on my arm gently. "Come in, sweetheart. Let's get you settled." Funny, isn't it? How a stranger can call you sweetheart, with more love than your own children use, when they say mom. She led me down a quiet hallway, to a small but clean room. A bed, a small dresser, a window. Simple but safe. Safe felt like luxury that day. "Make yourself comfortable," Linda said. "If you need anything, just ask. You're not alone here, okay?" He nodded. "Thank you. I mean it." When she left, I sat down on the bed slowly, creaked under me, but somehow that tiny sound felt comforting. I looked at the walls, plain white, nothing special, but for the first time in years, I didn't feel judged, didn't feel unwanted, didn't feel like I was walking on eggshells, felt human. I placed my bag beside me and unzipped it. Inside were the three things that still meant something. My wedding ring, the photograph of my kids, when they still loved me, and the envelope, thick sealed, untouched for years. The secret, the very thing my kids never bothered to ask about, never cared to notice, never even saw in the years, kept it hidden. I ran my fingers over the envelope, my chest tightening a little. "Not yet," I whispered to myself. "Soon. But not yet." Right then, a gentle knock came at my door. "Come in," I said. A woman walked in, older than me, gray hair, soft eyes. carrying a tray with a bowl of soup and bread. "I'm Margaret," she said kindly. "We all look after each other here. Thought you might be hungry." I wasn't expecting tears, but they came anyway. Not from sadness, but from the shock of simple kindness. Kindness hits harder when you've been starving for it. I wiped my eyes quickly. "Thank you. I really appreciate it." She sat down beside me. "You don't have to talk if you don't want to. But if you ever do, I'm a good listener." Took a breath. Shaky one. "I got kicked out this morning." Margaret didn't look shocked. Didn't ask why. Didn't ask what I did wrong. She just sighed deeply and said, "Honey, you'd be surprised how many mothers end up here. For the same damn reason." Same reason. Felt impossible. But she wasn't lying. Her eyes carried the truth. Suddenly I didn't feel so alone. Didn't feel like a failure. Didn't feel like I was the only mother who'd given everything and been given nothing in return. "You're safe now," Margaret whispered. "That's what matters." But I wasn't safe. Not really. Because inside my bag was a secret that would eventually drag my children right back into my life, whether they liked it or not. I held the envelope tighter and whispered in my mind, "They think losing me is freedom, but they have no idea what they're about to lose next." That first night in the community center, barely slept. Not because the room was uncomfortable. It was actually quieter than my own kid's house. But because my mind wouldn't stop replaying every moment of that morning, every word, every look, every silence that hurt more than anything they actually said. I kept hearing Aaron's voice. "You'll have to figure something else out." And Claire's voice on the phone. "It's better if she leaves, she stresses everyone out." Stress. Me. The same mother who held them together like glue. Their entire lives. The ceiling felt heavy as I stared up at it. I'd been through hard things before. Losing my husband. Working 2 jobs. Fighting through sickness. But nothing stung like this. Nothing. At around 6 a.m., I finally sat up, pulled the blanket off my legs, and walked toward the small window. The city was waking up. Cars, people, lights turning on. Life moving forward, like it always does, with or without you. I sighed and whispered to myself, "Okay, Marilyn, you're still breathing. You're still here. So what's next?" As if on cue, someone knocked gently on my door. "Come in." It was Margaret again, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You were awake," she said with a soft smile. "Figured you might need this." Coffee. Simple. But it warmed something in me that had been cold for years. We sat across from each other at the little table. For a moment, neither of us spoke, and somehow that silence felt safe. Margaret finally asked, "Do your kids know where you are?" I let out a breath. Long one. "No," I said. "And honestly, I don't think they care." Margaret leaned back, shaking her head slowly. "You'd be surprised, sweetheart. Kids don't realize what they've done until life smacks them in the face." I gave a bitter little laugh. "You think life will smack them?" She lifted an eyebrow. "Oh, honey, life keeps score. Just wait." I looked down at my hands. Hands that had cooked, cleaned, carried, cared. Hands that now trembled. Not from age, but from grief. Margaret noticed. She placed her warm hand on mine. "You're not weak, Marilyn," she said softly. "You're hurt. There's a difference." I paused. "And trust me, you're not done." Not done. The word stuck with me. 'Cause she was right. I wasn't done. Not with life. Not with my story. Not with my children. Especially not because of the secret. The one sitting quietly in my bag. Wrapped inside that envelope. That envelope wasn't just paper. It was truth. History. Proof. Power. It held answers to questions my children never bothered to ask. Answers they would soon face. Margaret stood up. "We're having a small breakfast downstairs. Come join us." It'll make you feel better. I hesitated, then nodded. Maybe I needed this. Maybe I needed these strangers who treated me better in 24 hours than my own children had in years. As I followed her down the hallway, my fingers brushed the envelope in my bag. And for the first time since I left my kids' house, I wasn't afraid of what came next. Because deep down, I knew something. My story wasn't falling apart. It was unfolding. The dining hall smelled like warm pancakes and fresh coffee, 2 scents that normally remind a mother of home. But today they reminded me of what home should have felt like, but never did. People were scattered around the room. Older folks, a few volunteers. Some chatting, some eating quietly. Every face had a story. Every pair of eyes had lived through something. Made me realize, being broken wasn't special. Being strong after breaking, that's what made people extraordinary. Margaret guided me to a small table. Sit, sweetheart. Let me grab you a plate. I nodded, my heart softening again. This woman didn't know me, didn't owe me anything. Yet she treated me with more love than my own flesh and blood. I sat down quietly, watching the sunlight stream in through the tall windows, and then I heard a voice behind me. Excuse me, are you Marilyn Thomas? I turned and saw a young woman, maybe in her 20s, dressed in a blue volunteer shirt, a clipboard in her hand, smiling politely. Yes, I said slowly. That's me. She stepped closer. I'm Jenna. Linda told me you checked in yesterday. I'm here to help you with your paperwork. And anything else you might need. Paperwork. The word made my heart tighten. Because paperwork meant information, details, background, history, the things I had kept quiet for years. Jenna sat down across from me, pulling out a pen. So, before we get started, is there anything you want us to know? Anything medical, financial, personal? Anything important? Important. That was a dangerous word. I glanced at my bag. The envelope inside felt heavier than ever. I swallowed hard. There, might be something. Just not yet. I'll share when I'm ready. Jenna nodded kindly. No rush. This is your pace, okay? Your pace. Words my children never understood. Margaret returned with a plate of pancakes and slid it toward me. Eat, she said gently. It'll help. I couldn't help but smile. You're spoiling me. She laughed. Someone should. For a while, we ate quietly. I didn't realize how hungry I was until the first bite hit my tongue and brought tears to my eyes. Hunger does that. It exposes what you've been ignoring. After breakfast, Jenna helped me fill out forms. Basic things, name, age, emergency contacts. When she reached, do you have immediate family involved in your care? Froze. My hand hovered over the paper. Family involved. What a joke. My children weren't involved. They weren't aware. They weren't even curious. But I didn't want to hide anything. So I wrote their names. Aaron Thomas, Claire Thomas, Ethan Thomas. Jenna read them and sighed softly. You have 3 kids. That's lovely. Lovely. If only she knew. She closed the folder gently. Okay, that's all for today. You take your time settling in. If you need help with anything, even just company, come find me. When she left, I finally allowed myself to exhale. Margaret leaned toward me. You know, she began quietly. Not every mother gets a second chance to rewrite the way she's treated. I paused. But you're about to. I looked at her, confused. What do you mean? Margaret gave me a knowing look. That envelope you keep touching. Her voice softened. I don't know what's in it, but I can tell it's important. And whatever it is, it's going to change things. I swallowed hard. 'Cause she was right. That envelope wasn't just important. It was the turning point. The moment everything would shift. Not for me. For my kids. For the first time that day, I whispered to myself. They think they threw me away. But they don't know. I'm the one thing they can't afford to lose. I spent the afternoon walking around the community center, trying to get used to the idea. This quiet hallway, this simple room, these unfamiliar yet kind faces, was my life now. Funny how life flips in a single day. One morning you're living under your child's roof, thinking you still belong. And by evening, you're gathering your pieces, in a shelter full of strangers. But these strangers, they smiled at me, asked how I was doing, held doors open, offered help. Not once did they roll their eyes, or sigh heavily, or act like I was a burden. It was strange, how easy kindness felt here, and how impossible it felt, inside my own children's home. I stopped near a bulletin board, covered with photos, people laughing, hugging, holding certificates, celebrating birthdays. Small card caught my eye. In block letters it said, "You matter, not because of what you give, but because of who you are." I had to blink a few times. Words shouldn't hit that hard, but they did, because for years, I existed only as what I gave. Mom the caretaker, Mom the babysitter, Mom the cook, Mom the do-everything. Not once had anyone asked, "Mom, are you okay?" As I kept walking, I found a small garden area outside, a bench under a big oak tree. The sun filtered through the leaves, painting soft shadows on the ground. I sat down, letting the warm air settle my racing thoughts. For the first time, I allowed myself to ask the question I'd been avoiding. What did I do wrong? I replayed every sacrifice, cutting down my meals, so my kids could have more, working double shifts, so they could have school trips, hiding my own tears, so they would feel safe, being the soft place. Everyone else landed. So where did I fail? Why did my love become something disposable? As I wiped a tear quietly, someone sat beside me. It was Linda. She didn't speak at first. She just sat, close enough to comfort, far enough to respect my space. After a moment she said softly, "I heard you couldn't sleep last night." I smiled weakly. "You heard that, huh?" He chuckled. "These walls are thin. But you don't have to suffer alone. We've all been through something." I shook my head. "My own kids threw me out. That's a different kind of pain." Linda's expression softened, in a way that told me she understood more than I expected. "You'd be surprised," she said quietly. "You're not the first mother to end up here because of her children. And sadly, you won't be the last." She turned toward me fully. "But you have something most don't." My brows pulled together. "What's that?" "The fire," she said. "That little spark in your eyes. That says you still have something left. Something unfinished." I swallowed hard. Envelope. The secret. The truth waiting to come out. Linda glanced at my bag. "You keep touching that zipper. Whatever you're holding on to, you'll know when it's time to use it." I looked down, running my fingers lightly over the bag again. "It's not time yet," I whispered. "No," Linda agreed. "But it will be soon." A breeze blew through the garden, rustling the leaves overhead. For a moment, felt like a message from the universe. Gentle, comforting, almost like a reminder that storms don't last forever. Linda stood up. "There's a support group at 6. You don't have to join. But I think you'd like it." After she left, I leaned back on the bench, letting the silence stretch around me. My children thought they'd pushed me out of their lives, for good. But what they didn't know was that life has a strange way of circling back. And the secret I carried, the one they ignored all these years, was about to find its place, whether they were ready or not. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. "Just wait," I whispered to the wind. "They'll come knocking, and I'll be ready." By evening the community center had quieted down. Most people were resting in their rooms, or chatting softly in the hallways. A soft hush settled over the place. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, feels safe. At exactly 6, I made my way toward the room, where the support group was held. I didn't know what to expect. Talking about my pain out loud felt almost impossible. I had swallowed it for so many years that it felt glued to my bones. But something inside me whispered, "Go." So I did. The room was warm, with chairs arranged in a circle. A few people had already gathered, some older, some middle-aged, a mixture of tired eyes and hopeful smiles. Linda waved me over gently. "Come sit, Marilyn. There's no pressure here. Just stories and people who understand." I took a seat quietly, folding my hands in my lap. A man named George spoke first. He talked about losing his wife, and how his kids drifted away, until phone calls turned into silence. His voice cracked halfway through, but no one judged him. They just listened. Then a woman named Carolyn shared how her daughter cut her off completely after she remarried late in life. "Apparently I'm selfish," she said, laughing bitterly. "I gave her 32 years. Marrying at 60 made me a villain." Everyone nodded. These weren't strangers. These were warriors, with invisible wounds. When it was my turn, Linda placed a hand on my shoulder. "Only if you're ready," she whispered. I wasn't ready, but maybe I needed to try. I took a shaky breath. "My kids." I paused as my chest tightened. "My kids asked me to leave yesterday." The room fell quiet. Not shocked, just understanding. I continued slowly, carefully picking up the pieces I had been hiding. I spent my whole life giving them everything I had. Food, time, comfort. All of it. But yesterday, my voice cracked. They told me I was a burden. Someone across the room whispered, "Oh, honey." It almost made me cry right there. "I didn't argue," I said softly. "I just walked away. Because when your own children make you feel unwanted, fighting doesn't save anything. It only breaks you more." The silence that followed was the kind that wraps around you like a blanket. Not pity, compassion. I looked down at my hands, the same hands that had fed, held, and raised 3 children. And now those same children couldn't hold me for even a moment. Carolyn leaned forward. "Sweetheart, kids forget the sacrifices their mothers make until life reminds them." Her words hit hard. George nodded. "They'll remember. Trust me. But by the time they do, it won't be the same story anymore." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Maybe," I whispered. "But I'm tired of waiting for them to remember." Linda looked at me gently. "You don't have to wait for them, Marilyn. You start again from here. And when the time comes, they'll no longer be in control of how this story ends." And just like that, the room felt warmer, safer, lighter. For the first time, I didn't feel like a mother thrown away. Felt like a woman who still had something left inside her. Something my kids didn't see, but soon would. When the meeting ended, I walked out feeling different, not healed, but stronger. As I reached my room, I touched the envelope inside my bag. The secret pulsed under my fingertips, like a heartbeat. "Not yet," I whispered. "But soon." That envelope wasn't anger. It wasn't revenge. It was truth. And truth has its own timing. Tonight I let myself rest. Not because the pain was gone, but because I finally realized one thing my children forgot. A mother's story doesn't end just because her children walk away. The next morning, sunlight poured into my room. Before I even opened my eyes, it warmed my face, soft and gentle, nothing like the harsh brightness of the house I had left behind. Funny how light feels different, depending on where you wake up. In my children's home, morning light felt like a reminder of all the things I still had to do. Here, felt like permission to breathe. I stretched slowly, feeling the stiffness in my joints. Age has its own stubbornness. But also feeling something else. A rare visitor. I slipped on my sweater, grabbed my bag, and stepped into the hallway. The soft hum of morning activity echoed through the building. People talking quietly. Volunteers preparing breakfast. Footsteps shuffling gently. It didn't feel lonely. Felt lived in. As I reached the dining area, Margaret waved me over. There she is. Our early bird. I laughed softly. I didn't realize I'd become part of the routine already. You'd be surprised, she said. People around here get attached fast. I sat beside her, and she pushed a cup of hot tea my way. Yesterday was rough, she said gently. But today feels different on you. It does, I admitted. I'm still hurting, but I'm not drowning anymore. That's the spirit. She tapped my hand playfully. Pain is stubborn, but so are we old ladies. Smiled. 'Cause she was right. All of us here. We were survivors wearing soft cardigans. As we ate, Jenna approached with her clipboard. Morning, Marilyn. I have a few updates for you. Whenever you're ready. Oh, and blinked. Updates about what? She hesitated. It's about the emergency contact forms. We reached out to your children. Just to verify numbers and basic information. My heart stopped. You called them. Just a routine confirmation, she assured quickly. We didn't mention your situation. But, her voice lowered. We haven't heard back from any of them. Course. Why would they answer? I nodded calmly, even though something inside me cracked a little. It's fine, I whispered. They're busy. Margaret squeezed my arm gently, as if she knew exactly what that tiny silence cost me. But then Jenna added something unexpected. If they don't respond in a day or two, we'll need to mark them as unreachable. That means we'll review your file to see what options you have for future arrangements. Future arrangements. The phrase felt heavy, like the beginning of a new chapter. I wasn't fully prepared for. But before the fear could settle, Jenna continued. We'd also need to know if there's anything important we should be aware of, financially or legally. Her eyes drifted toward my bag. In case there are things that could help your situation. Froze. She didn't know. She couldn't know. But her words cut straight to the truth. Might be time. Time to open the envelope. Time to stop hiding. What could change everything? Margaret watched my expression soften, then tighten, then settle into something determined. You're thinking about it, aren't you? She whispered. I nodded slowly. I've been holding on to that envelope for years, waiting for the right moment. And now? She asked gently. I breathed in, then out. Now the moment might be coming. Margaret gave a soft smile. Well, when you decide to open it, just know you don't have to do it alone. Her words warmed something deep inside me. A part of me I thought had dried up long ago. After breakfast, I walked back to my room, closed the door, and sat on the edge of my bed. The envelope lay in my lap. Heavy, quiet. Inside it was everything. Proof of sacrifices, proof of love, and the one truth. My children never bothered to learn. I ran my finger along the seal. Not yet. Soon. Very soon. I whispered to myself. They think I have nothing left. But the truth I carry is worth more than everything they pushed me out for. And for the first time since they kicked me out, I felt something close to strength. I placed the envelope carefully back in my bag, its weight lingering in my hands, even after I let go. There's a strange heaviness that comes from holding the truth, especially a truth that can change the direction of your life and the lives of the people who hurt you. I needed air, fresh air, something that wasn't soaked in old memories, so I stepped outside. The morning sun was warmer now, casting long shadows across the courtyard. A few residents were sitting in the garden, reading, knitting, chatting quietly. A peaceful scene. One I hadn't been part of in far too long. I sat on the bench beneath the oak tree, fingers tracing the grain of the wood, trying to calm the storm, whirling in my chest. Didn't work. My mind kept racing back to my children, and how easily they turned their backs. How Ethan didn't even look at me when I stood in the doorway. How Erin shut the door without a second glance. How Claire's voice dripped with impatience as she told me to leave. I blinked away tears, not because of what they said, but because of what they didn't say. Not one of them said, "Mom, wait. Mom, let's talk. Mom, stay." Not one. As I sat there, lost in my own thoughts, a shadow fell across the ground. I looked up and saw Jenna. She looked hesitant, like she didn't want to intrude. "Can I sit?" she asked. "Of course," I said softly. She sat beside me, hugging her clipboard close to her chest. "I didn't want to overwhelm you earlier," she said carefully, "but I wanted to check on you. I know contacting family can bring up a lot of emotions." I forced a small smile. "You mean being ignored by them?" She winced slightly. "I'm sorry, I didn't want it to sound like." "It's okay," I cut in gently. "You're just doing your job." But Jenna shook her head. "No, this isn't just a job. Not for me. My grandmother, she went through something similar. Her kids drifted away. And she never told anyone how lonely she was. I always wished someone had paid attention sooner." Her voice cracked a little as she looked down at her hands. That softness inside me, the same softness my children mistook for weakness, stirred. "I'm sorry you went through that," said. She nodded. "That's why I take this work seriously. People think parents always have someone, but they forget. Sometimes the people you raised are the first to leave you behind." Her words hit straight through me. Jenna took a quiet breath. "I just want you to know, Marilyn, you're not alone here. Not for a second." It was strange how a young woman, barely in her 20s, could offer more warmth than the 3 lives I carried into this world. "I appreciate that," I whispered. More than she knew. Jenna hesitated before adding, "If there's anything we should be prepared for, anything important about your situation, you can trust us. We're here to help you build whatever comes next." There it was again, that gentle push toward the envelope. The universe wasn't being subtle anymore. I looked at Jenna, really looked at her. Her compassion wasn't forced. Her patience wasn't fake. She wasn't pretending to care for the sake of her job. She genuinely cared. "Jenna," I said softly, "I might need to talk to someone soon about something important." Her eyes brightened, but she didn't press. "Whenever you're ready," she said simply. "I'll be here." She stood up, smiled one last time, and walked back inside, leaving me alone with the whispering leaves overhead. I leaned back against the bench, closing my eyes. There was fear, pain, regret. But beneath all of that, softer, quieter, was something else. Strength, the kind that grows, not from winning, but from surviving. And deep in my chest, I could feel it. The moment to reveal the truth was getting closer. My children thought they ended my story. But what they didn't know was, I was just getting started. That afternoon felt heavier than the morning. Not because something bad happened, but because something inside me was shifting. Strange, really, how strength doesn't return all at once. It comes back in small pieces, in breaths, in thoughts, in choices. And today a new piece returned. I sat in my room for a long time, the envelope on the table staring at me, like a heartbeat I'd been ignoring. The truth inside it was silent, but powerful, like thunder waiting for permission to roar. I touched it again, fingers trembling just a little, not from fear, but from the weight of finally being seen. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Come in," I said, expecting Margaret. But it wasn't her. It was Linda, the woman who first called me yesterday, the one who gave me a room when I had nowhere else to go. She stepped inside slowly, kind eyes scanning my face. "You look tired," she said gently. "I'm not tired," I whispered. "I'm thinking." "That's worse," she chuckled softly, then sat across from me. "I wanted to check in because Jenna told me you might have some important documents." Her voice was cautious. Not nosy, not demanding. Just respectful. I nodded slowly. "Yes, I do." Linda leaned forward, her tone softening. Marilyn listened to me carefully. She paused, making sure I was fully present. "You don't owe anyone your pain. Not your children. Not the world. Not even us." Her words were gentle, but they cut deep. "But if you're holding something that could change your future, you deserve to understand it before anyone else does." I swallowed hard. For decades I held that envelope as proof of something I never spoke of, something I thought my children might one day appreciate. But they never asked. They never even wondered. Linda's eyes flicked toward the envelope again. "Do you want to tell me what it is?" she asked. I shook my head. "Not yet. I need to open it myself first." She smiled gently. "That's fair. When you're ready, you won't be alone." She stood to leave. But just before exiting she turned back. "Marilyn," she said softly, "whatever is inside that envelope, don't be afraid of it. Sometimes truth hurts, but it also frees us." When she left, I stared at the envelope again. My heartbeat matched the rhythm of the silence. And slowly, with more courage than I expected, I slid it closer. My hand shook as I broke the seal. Paper rustled. Old paper, worn edges, familiar handwriting. At the top of the first document was my husband's signature. My breath caught. My late husband. The man I buried decades ago. My children barely remember him. But he remembered me. He remembered everything. And what he left behind wasn't small. It wasn't symbolic. It wasn't sentimental. It was life-changing. My voice trembled as I whispered, "No, they have no idea." Because inside that envelope was something that didn't belong to them, but affected them more than anything else ever would. And now, for the first time since they pushed me out, I wasn't the one who was afraid. They were. They just didn't know it yet. My hands trembled as I unfolded the first page. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't a photograph. It was something far bigger. The top line read, "Last will and testament of George Thomas." My husband's will. My breath caught in my chest. All these years, I protected this. Not because of the money, but because of what it represented. A lifetime of sacrifice. A lifetime of love. A lifetime they never respected. I turned to the second page. The one my husband had signed before he took his last breath. And there it was, in bold letters. The house, all assets, savings, investments, and the property at Ridgewood Estate belonged to my wife, Marilyn Thomas. My heart raced. The house my children lived in, the house they kicked me out of, was legally mine, not theirs. Every wall, every brick, every inch. They had thrown the owner out of her own house. I kept reading, tears burning my eyes. After Marilyn's passing, the estate will be divided equally among the children, only if they remain in good standing with her. Good standing. The words echoed inside me. It meant, if they disrespected me, ignored me, abandoned me, they had no right to a single cent. And my children, they had done far worse than disrespect. They had thrown me out. Margaret walked in quietly. Maybe she sensed something. When she saw the papers in my lap, her eyes widened. "Is that what I think it is?" I nodded slowly. "My husband left everything to me. Everything. The house they're living in, is legally mine. Margaret gasped. And they don't know this. No, I whispered. I never told them. I wanted them to love me, not what I owned. She placed her hand on her mouth, stunned. Marilyn, they kicked you out of your own house? I swallowed hard. Yes. The weight of that truth hit me harder than anything else had. My husband didn't just leave me money. He left me power. Power I never used. Power my children never imagined. Margaret sat beside me. What will you do now? For the first time since that horrible morning, my voice carried something new. Not sadness. Not pain. Certainty. They think they ended my story, I said softly. But they don't know. I looked down at the will, my hand steady now. It wasn't just paper. It was justice. This story has only just begun. And somewhere deep inside me, a fire that had been silent for years, finally roared awake. Not revenge. Not hatred. Truth. And truth, once opened, cannot be put back in an envelope. After Margaret left, I sat there for a long time. The will still open in my lap. My past and my future staring back at me. From the same piece of paper. Felt unreal. All these years, I thought I had nothing left. No voice. No value. No place. But now, I wasn't empty. I was the legal owner of the very house my children threw me out of. Every sacrifice I made. Every night I stayed awake taking care of them. Every meal I skipped so they could eat. It hadn't been for nothing. My husband, the only person who ever loved me without conditions, had seen my worth long before anyone else did. And he protected it. Protected me. I wiped a tear from my cheek. Not from sadness, but from something I hadn't felt in years. Dignity. Just then my phone buzzed. For a second, hope flickered in my chest. Maybe Aaron had called. Maybe Ethan. Maybe Claire finally realized what she'd done. I grabbed the phone quickly. But the screen showed just one word. Claire. My heart jumped. I hesitated before answering. Her voice burst through immediately. Cold, annoyed. Mom, did you take the old documents from the drawer? Aaron can't find the house papers anywhere. He says you had them. Do you have them? Not a single. Mom, are you okay? Mom, where are you? Mom, I'm sorry. Nothing. Just papers. Just possession. Just what benefited them. I inhaled slowly. My voice was calm, calmer than I expected. Yes, Claire, I said. I have them. She scoffed. Well, Aaron needs them. Bring them back. Bring them back. Like I was a delivery woman. Not their mother. Not the owner of their roof. Just someone they could use. Something inside me shifted. For years I stayed silent. For years I backed down. For years I let them speak while I swallowed pain. But not today. Claire, I said quietly. What? She snapped. You don't own that house. Silence. What are you talking about? She asked, voice sharp. That house, I continued. The one you live in. The one you made me leave. My hands tightened around the will. It belongs to me. Legally. Completely. Your father left everything to me. Dead silence. I could hear her breathing change. Confusion. Fear. Mom, what do you mean? She whispered now. Arrogance gone. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't shout. I simply spoke the truth. That had waited years to breathe. You didn't throw me out of your house, Claire. You threw me out of my house. Blick. She didn't hang up. She dropped her phone. I could hear panic in the distance. Voices. Aaron's voice. What do you mean it's Mom's house? For the first time in a long time. Smiled. Not out of revenge. Not out of pride. Out of justice. My children finally realized something. You can abandon your mother, but you cannot erase the truth. And now, the truth was knocking at their door. I placed the phone beside me and closed my eyes. For years I begged for a voice. Today I finally found it. Just as I stood up, there was a loud knock on my door. Fast, urgent, almost desperate. Opened it. It was Jenna. "Marilyn," she said, slightly breathless. "There are 3 people in the lobby asking for you. They look upset." My heart didn't need a name. Already knew. My children had come. My legs felt heavy. But I walked, slow, steady, alive, toward the lobby. I saw them before they saw me. Aaron pacing like a man who'd lost control. Claire holding her phone, eyes wide with panic. Ethan sitting on a chair, face pale, hands shaking. They didn't look angry. They looked scared. The same children, who once saw me as a burden, now looked at me like I was the one thing they couldn't afford to lose. Claire spotted me first. "Mom!" She rushed forward. But I didn't move. For once, they had to come to me. Aaron stood still, voice cracking. "Why didn't you tell us?" I looked at him calmly. "You never asked." Ethan buried his face in his hands. "I didn't know, we didn't know." I didn't soften. "You didn't want to know." Claire stepped closer, tears in her eyes. "Mom, we made a mistake." Mistake. That word felt so small, compared to the emptiness I lived through. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I spoke with the strength I earned. "You didn't just push me out of a house. You pushed me out of your hearts." Aaron swallowed hard. "Please come home." I shook my head. "That house isn't home anymore." They froze. Because for the first time ever, I wasn't asking for space. I was setting boundaries. Ethan whispered, "What do you want from us?" I looked at each of them. Not as a mother begging for love, but as a woman who finally understood her worth. "I don't want anything," I said softly. "I gave you my life. What I needed was respect." Silence hung in the air. Then I added, "And respect isn't something you give. When you lose something, something you show. Before it's too late." Claire broke down crying. "Mom, please don't do this." I stepped back. "You already did." They reached toward me. Not physically, but emotionally. For the first time in years. But this time, the distance wasn't mine. It was theirs. For a moment no one spoke. My children stood in front of me. Not as adults full of opinions, but as the same scared kids, who once held my hands when thunderstorms shook the night. And maybe, just maybe, that was the moment I realized something. They weren't heartless. They were lost. Lost in pride. Lost in life. Lost in the comfort of having a mother who never said no. Claire wiped her tears. "Mom, we forgot who you were. We thought you needed us. But the truth is, we were the ones who needed you." Aaron finally stepped closer, voice trembling. "I didn't throw you out because I didn't love you. I threw you out because I was tired, stressed, overwhelmed. And I blamed you for things that weren't your fault." His words cracked at the end. "I'm sorry, Mom." Ethan looked up, eyes red. "I should have stood up for you that day. I was scared Aaron would get mad at me. But I was wrong. I should have protected you." They weren't excuses. They were confessions. For the first time in a very long time, my children weren't talking at me. They were talking to me. The pain inside my heart softened. Not because they apologized, but because I finally understood. People don't stop loving their mothers. They just forget how to show it. I took a slow breath. "Love isn't enough," I said gently. "You have to remember it. Respect it. Protect it." Aaron nodded. "We will." Claire stepped forward, voice shaking. "Mom, please, come home. Not because we need papers. Not because we're scared. But because we want you." This time their eyes weren't avoiding mine. They were pleading, honest, raw. And suddenly, the house didn't matter. The will didn't matter. What mattered was this. For the first time in years, my children finally saw me. Not as a burden. Not as a servant. Not as someone who lived in their space. But as their mother. I exhaled, a long breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for decades. "I'll come home," I said softly. Relief washed across their faces. But on one condition. Aaron swallowed. Anything. I looked each of them in the eyes. You don't love me when it's convenient. You love me because I raised you to. Claire stepped forward, tears streaming. We will, Mom. I promise. Ethan whispered. This time, you won't be alone. For the first time in months, a tear escaped my eye. Not from heartbreak, but from healing. We walked out together, side by side. Not as strangers sharing a roof, but as a family, finding its way back home. Months later, the guest room wasn't storage anymore. It was my room. My picture sat in the living room, where a mother's place belongs. And my children didn't just call me Mom. They called me. Before making decisions. Before celebrating moments. Before anything that mattered. One evening, Aaron hugged me and whispered, "You were never a burden. We were just blind." I smiled, holding his hand. "You see me now." He nodded. "We always did. We just forgot." And as laughter slowly filled the house again, I finally understood. Sometimes, life breaks you, so you can teach others how to put you back together. And sometimes, a mother doesn't lose her family. She teaches them how to return. End.